Hello, Gareth here, and welcome to my art journal and my messy studio. Actually, not that messy today. And this journal is quite exciting because I've done some really good paintings. So I've got paintings of cherry blossom to show you. I've got paintings of a fir tree on a coastal cliff, and yet various other paintings that I can't remember. But anyway, I've got some notes. This will make you laugh. So these are my notes. Now you can see why I wasn't a top student at school. I think the ability to write neat notes is very important, but it's something. Oh, and another thing I've got to share with you, I was having a walk by my local river and I saw a man feeding the birds. Now these birds I think are called buzzards and they're beautiful looking birds. Anyway, I took a lot of photos and then from the photos I did these drawings. And just look at the shape of the wings and these little, I don't know what you call them, but the tips of the wings are beautiful, absolutely beautiful shape. And I just love the wings on these birds and how beautiful they look. So yeah, it was really fun to draw them, also quite challenging. And I've got a few paintings to show you in which I've done some paintings of these birds. Now, I still think these paintings are not that great, but I think at some point in the future, it will all come together and it will look good. So without further ado, let's have a look at what I've been painting. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the paintings, but before I do that, I just want to show you this Copic multi-line ink pen. So I'm really happy with this pen, with finding it, because it's something I've been looking for a long time, which is basically a refillable ink pen. And at last I found it, and it's really good. And in some of these paintings, I've used it, and also the drawings of the birds, I used that Copic pen. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, let me get my notes. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is my paintings of a place called Yufuin. So this is this place. So this is a tourist town in my prefecture, Oita, and it's called Yufuin. And I had a photo of this road and then this beautiful traditional Japanese house here with a thatched roof. So I think this was my first attempt, and to be honest, I'm not that happy with this particular painting. It's okay, but not quite good enough. But so I think this one will get thrown away, but the next one is really good. But at first, this painting was also a failure. But then what I did was I got a wet brush and I went over the whole lot and just washed everything out. Now, because I used a lot of dark paints, I couldn't really remove a lot. But what happened is it softened all the colours and I ended up with a really nice painting. Now it's not beautiful. I've got some ugly marks up here, but I like it. I think it's really good. And I added this rickshaw. And so, yeah, this painting was a failure, but it ended up being a success. So I'm really happy with this one. And I'm going to keep this one. So there you go. And that was quite fun to do. It's not perfect. But anyway, moving on. So This is a place in Hiji. So yeah, so it's a real place, and you've got this lone fir tree on a coastal cliff, and yeah, you can actually see that Copic pen line there. Anyway, I really like this particular scene and this coastal scene, and I added a different sky, an evening sky, and it ended up being quite a nice painting, and I think I'll keep this one. I think the sky is beautiful and the colours are really good. It does look a little bit sloppy, I suppose, but yeah, I still like it. It's got something very nice about it. Anyway, I had another go, and yeah, I did a different sky, and I played around with the colours a lot, and yeah, I quite like this one as well. It's got a very different feeling, and I added some birds, and I did a lot of colour work here, blues and yellows and reds. It was actually a lot of fun, and that's really important when you paint, to keep the fun, you know, not to end up getting too serious, too perfectionist, and then you end up feeling a bit, I don't know, like dried up or burnt out. So it's really good to keep it fun, keep it experimental, and that's what this painting was, and I think it's pretty good. Just a minute, the angle is not so good. Ooh. There we go. So yeah, I think the colours are quite nice, and it's got a nice glow. Okay, the next one. So a different sky, evening sky still, but a different evening sky, and I quite like this one. And yeah, I did these rays of light coming through here. That was a lot of fun. And of course I did these birds. So from my drawings, yeah, I used that and I did these birds, and I think it's pretty good. I'm still not 100% sure, but I'm not going to throw it away. I think it's pretty good. And this one isn't finished yet. This is my first attempt at doing a painting of that man who was feeding these birds. So it's not bad, but it's not quite there. But I'll keep it so that I remember this scene, and at some point in the future I'll have another go. What I really like in this painting is the grass and the texture. I love that. I really like that. I need to break up this shadow. That doesn't look quite right. With some blades of grass, I need to break it up. And maybe here, it needed more white here. I could add some white paint, but it's not going to be as powerful as white paper, which we've got here. But I still think it's quite good. And then the cherry blossom. So I went to my castle. There is actually no castle, but there's a castle wall with some guard towers. And it was a bit late, actually. A lot of the cherry blossom had fallen off and green leaves were starting to come out. Anyway, this is a painting that I did on the spot, and I'm quite happy with it. I think the sky is nice, and the cherry blossom is not too bad. And I think the colours are very vibrant. So anyway, I had a really good time. The weather was beautiful. And then this is one I did at home from a photograph, and I think this is really good. This is me on a bicycle. So I've got this funny bicycle with little wheels, but I like it. I think it looks good. And I use that pen, and I think it really works well in this painting. It's like a line and wash painting. There's something very crisp and fresh about this painting. I love the path and the texture. The colours are nice. It's light, colourful, breezy. Yeah, it worked out well. Maybe I needed a bit more pink cherry blossom, but still it's pretty good. And a bit more, some shadows in the leaves, but it's nice. It's a light, breezy watercolour painting. Okay, and then the next one was an experiment. I love experiments. So I took my drone with me to the castle, and I took this shot from above, looking down on people walking along the path next to the cherry blossom. And also we got these people, you know, some people having picnics or taking photos or sitting down and just being contemplative. And I'm really happy with the textures here and the colours. It worked out pretty well, this painting. I think there's a real nice feeling, and the angle is interesting, very interesting. So I'm really happy with that one, and I will be making a video about my trip to the castle at some point. Just I struggle with video editing. And then this was just me playing around. This is my riverbank. So in Japan they have these artificial riverbanks that are very high, and I used to hate them, but now I just take advantage of them and try to use them in my paintings. And I've just got this figure which looks a lot like me because he's got this big floppy hat which I wear, and he's standing on the riverbank and, well, embankment, and looking at the sunset. And I really like the sky, and I added the birds. I'm not sure what I think to them, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting, but I love the clouds and the glow. So yeah. And finally, this is one maybe I did a month or two ago, and I actually was going to throw this one away because it was almost like a scribble. And then I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is actually a really great painting. So this is just an experiment and just playing around. And I think the lesson from this painting is how important it is to play and not always to be too serious, which I can be, and do like a proper painting. So I just thought, I'm going to do a car, I'm going to do some funny light. It could be the moon, it could be the sun, I don't know, behind it. And then do this like street, this road with buildings in the city, and do this transparent, wet road surface and have a lot of texture. And it was just playing, but it ended up being a really beautiful painting. Yeah. So yeah, the lesson from this painting is do play. Do sometimes paint things straight out of your imagination. If you're like a beginner, then maybe that's not going to be so good at first because you don't have a lot of knowledge about images and objects like cars and buildings and what are they called? Utility poles, whatever. So you can't access that, and that makes a big difference. But I've been painting for a long time, so I have a good idea how to paint these objects, and I have a lot of experience with making textures and playing with colours. But the sooner you begin doing this and the more comfortable you get at it or get with it, it will really help, I think, with your own art journey. your creative journey. It is very much a personal thing and a living thing. And so the sooner you begin to do that, it will be good for you and enjoyable for you. And it doesn't mean you can't copy other people's work. That's fine. That's a good practice. And it's also a good practice to listen to other artists. But you do need that space and time in which you just do your stuff and to get comfortable with that. And that's how you eventually find your own, I don't want to say style, because I think style is very limiting, because you can get to a point where you master something and then you're not going to do that for the rest of your life, or hopefully not. You're going to like do something new, and that's how you want it to be. But that's why it needs to be your journey, and you'll start to develop just your own inner compass, I suppose, of like, I want to do this. Like me with the birds, yeah? I just saw that man feeding the birds, and I just thought, that could be good. So wherever you are, you might be walking along the street or even by your river, and you see something and it resonates with something inside of you, yeah? That creative compass, whatever it is. I can't quite describe it, but that's bit by bit where you want to go with your art, so that you're going out into the world and you're seeing things. It might even be a movie that you're watching, but you just see an image and you think, there's something about that image that I want to paint. There's something there that has my interest and excites me, and I want to have a go at painting something and using that as a subject matter. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Guys, I don't want to call you guys. I don't want to call you people. I don't know. Friends sounds a bit stupid, right? I don't even know you. Anyway, I'm just looking through my notes. You remember my notes? So I think I covered about everything. So yeah, so now I'm just going to talk about a few personal things. So that's really it with the art. So now might be a good time to, watch something else. So a few things happened. So there was an earthquake about 4 or 5 days ago. I was here with my daughter, and we got underneath the table just in case. But the problem is our table has 2 legs in the middle. So if the house fell down, I think the tabletop would just flip and crush us. So I want to make an earthquake-proof table because I can't make a house. So that's one of my projects at the moment. I'm not sure if it's possible to make a table that's strong enough to withstand a wooden house falling on top of it, but that's something I'm thinking about. I was thinking about making one from scaffolding. I'm a bit crazy, yeah, but it's difficult because getting the right length of steel pole and then cutting it. When I talked to the guy, and it was in Japanese, and my Japanese is okay, but it's not so good that I can understand fully. I think he was saying to me that when you cut steel pipes, you can't cut them super neat. That's what he was saying, not with what they've got at the hardware department store. So what I found instead was these really thick, almost block-like lengths of wood, and I might use something like that with dowels, because dowels are easy joints to make, and I've heard they're very strong. So I might use these real big chunky pieces of wood with dowels as joints. Hope that makes sense. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about at the moment, one of my challenges. And the other thing is I've had some breathing problems because at the moment we've got all this yellow sand coming from China. Is it from the Gobi Desert? So when you look at the horizon now, it's really hazy because of this yellow sand. Anyway, it's very high PM and it really affects me. And a few days ago, I found it really difficult to sleep. And yeah, it's really a problem. I think if I lived in the countryside, it would be a lot better, because I think in the city as well is very hard for me because there's a lot of pollution here. There's a steel factory nearby and other factories, and it really affects my breathing, and it's gives me a hard time. So it doesn't happen all the time, but now and again. And so at the moment, springtime is one of the worst times, yeah. Winter time is one of the best times. That's when the air is really clear, yeah. So I really hope at some point to be living in the countryside, but the only problem with that is, I'm not going to be with my wife and daughter. So it's a kind of, yeah, because they don't want to live in the countryside. So I don't know how I'm going to solve that problem, but I will solve it. So that's everything. I've been doing a lot of cooking. I've been making curries and making beef soup and really delicious food. So that's been fun. But now I'm just rambling, so I'm going to leave it here. I hope you found that enjoyable, hopefully a little bit educational and also inspiring if you are an artist. And down below there will be a link where you can buy framed prints of my work from a company called Gelato. Now, I have to say, it's not going to be super perfect. You might get the odd smudge on the frame. Difficult to see, but if you look carefully, you can maybe see it. And you might even get a slight scrape, just a little one on the, I'm really good at promoting myself, right? But I'm just being honest. On the frame on the outside, and the white border might not be perfect, but the price is so good. It cost me about $33, and that's for a fairly big frame painting. I did have a 50% discount, so it would have cost about $53, and that includes my shipping, yeah. So it's still really cheap, and what you get is amazing value. So I'll put a link to that at the bottom in case you're interested, because I think it's fantastic value and the framed prints look really good. So there you go. And hopefully I'll be back soon with some new and exciting artwork to show you. Bye for now.